hour 2. Jake, are you still with us?
I'm still here, and this is the first time we've done this, me and you, but it was worth it. So we just had Derek Brose, prolific activist, agorist, anarchist, breaking it down for us. That was a clinic in community thinking. Our next hour is going to feature some equally powerful guests, two of which we've had on before. We got L. Deeds coming on, and then we have a retired firefighter, JT, who's going to be doing some great stuff. I don't know exactly when they're joining us, but DB, maybe you can give us a little bit of a preface on what the theme of the next hour.
Sure. So everybody knows that there's been a lot of misdirection going on to try to essentially get these people off the hook for what we now know is a huge network of people across the globe, and they're being protected in the elite circles. And we have two gentlemen that are great researchers.
You need to specify.
Yes, yes, but it's not just that. There's adults as well trafficked, some for their entire lives, some when they're born through their entire lives. That's all they know. And these are the people that they feed, they're parasites, and they feed off the system that Derek says to get off of, because this system is a joke and it's an illusion, and it allows things like this to happen. So we're going to have L. Deeds, we're going to have JT, we're going to have Howie. He's going to be a new guest. Jake, I think you have all of them. I think you have all their names on Skype, and I think you can just go ahead and add them in as host. L. Deeds is, I guess, ready to go.
All right. Let me figure this out here. All right, getting it going here. And so, of course, this is all in the backdrop of,
Elle's on with us, I think. Elle, are you here?
Who keeps calling me? Hello.
Great. All right, so now we'll add in Howie and JT. And there's Howie.
Getting everyone going here.
Jake, how are you?
I'm good, L. Deeds. How are you?
Thank you for asking. I'm so grateful to be here and very happy to discuss these incredibly important and hard to talk about topics. Thank you for the forum, Jake.
Oh, I know what. Oh, thank you. I know what's going on with Howie. I have to add him as a friend first. That's how that goes.
You should add him as a friend. He has an incredible backbone and staggering moral fiber. Howie is totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this. But honestly, Howie's a hero to me.
Oh, I should be able to add him there. Let's see. It says he is unable to join this call. They may need to come online, update Skype, or they're using an unsupported device. Okay, so we're going to have to troubleshoot this one a little bit.
In the interim, can you get JT?
I'm here.
Okay, John's here. So yeah, we'll troubleshoot here to get Howie online. John, you joined us before, and it was a pretty incredible kind of testimony you gave. And just so our viewers maybe who weren't with us last time, maybe you can just kind of introduce a little bit of your history. You're a retired firefighter, and you've since devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. What maybe you could explain to us, maybe in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Great question.
Yeah, I like to sandwich together about 10 different questions. and just
when I heard that, I saw the Northern Lights.
Great question. Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true, or a large deal of it. And I mean, 9/11 was a wake-up call for everybody. Us watching what happened to our colleagues, to our fellow citizens, just really shocked everybody. And being in the fire service, it was so apparent that what they were telling us wasn't the case, i.e., a controlled demolition on a building that was not struck by a plane looks exactly like Building 7 coming down. So we knew it from like day one, and that just set me on another course. We had the grief of the event. Our union brought some of the FDNY guys down to Stewart, and seeing them and what they had been through, and it just rocked my world, to say the least. And starting to investigate that, some of the contacts, probably the guy I would have the most in debt to is a guy by the name of Field McConnell, who is a retired Marine Air Corps lieutenant colonel, whose best friend was Chip Burlingame, who was the pilot of Flight 11 that did not hit the Pentagon. And getting in touch with Field just opened this rabbit hole up for me, where I found out about things like the intelligence services and how they were operating. And one of the things, their major tool is blackmail, by using children and pedophilia to compromise political operatives. And that got me started to the Franklin cover-up. And after reading that book, there's just been nothing more important to me than ending, what's going on with our kids. And that's kind of how I got here. And
well, thank you so much. I mean, there's few things more important to me personally than the 9/11 issue, and of course taking care of our children. Nothing could be more important than that. And especially with the priest just coming out, the Catholic priests just in the last couple of days, basically getting a walk on raping 30 children. I mean, we have a national, global epidemic of children, of people taking advantage of children, and this is such a huge issue. I want to bring Howie in now, and given that your code name here is Pizzagate Howie, I would assume that you can speak a little bit to the latest of what's going on, or maybe LDs. Maybe do you want to give a little bit better of a background for Howie here?
I'd gladly contribute a few sentences, although Howie's deeds stand head and shoulders above anything that goes on online, because Howie goes offline. Howie stands in line. Howie goes to the NFL draft. Howie shows up. But in terms of how I came to know of him, it's because I've been aware, as I don't know how many people have been aware, of the Podesta, Comet Ping Pong, DynCorp, CIA, Deep State unmasking. We've all had a view to, those who cared to look at it. And Howie showed up to represent the fact that CIA does in fact traffic weapons, Fast and Furious, Eric Holder, look it up. Government does in fact destabilize governments. Look at Iran in the 70s versus now, look it up. I mean, it's all right there. Be curious. And Howie was curious and early activated, an early adopter.
Howie, do we have you online here?
No, he's not on. I think you have to try to add him, Jake.
Well, no, I've tried about 10 times. It actually says he's on the call, so I'm having not really fully understanding this.
Do we disconnect and reconnect?
Well, if I add him, I don't know. We'll get disconnected.
Well, I'm saying add to call now. So let's see. We'll get it. Let's see.
I mean, I can try. Let's see what happens.
No, I won't. It'll kick you off, dude.
My Skype doesn't show Howie is with us. It shows four, including our host.
He was on, and then he got kicked off. All right, I'm pressing add to call now. Everyone out there, this is called Skype 101. We're dealing with.
Actually, it's the new quote-unquote updated Skype. It was actually the new shittier Skype.
Yeah, I know.
That's an open secret too, right?
Thank you, Microsoft.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's not ish. This is not letting me add him for some reason. He was on for a minute, wasn't he?
Yes.
Why would he not be on now? Hmm. Okay, trying again.
This is why we need that
I'm
jazz
gonna see if we
trio.
can get him this way. I'm trying to add him to the call here.
Come on, Howie.
Even just like a
I'm
guy with
ringing
a
him.
fiddle.
I'm ringing him. But if I'm ringing him and you tried ringing him and he's not getting it, then maybe
Yeah.
he needs to do that update that he's been dreading doing, and he needs to do it.
Yeah,
They're
he
forcing
needs.
you.
I think he
They're
needs to.
forcing you,
I
Howie.
can see him on another window, and he's
Yeah, it's
texting
ringing
on another
too.
window.
All right. Well, he's going to need to update his Skype. In the meantime, he's working on that now. In the meantime, I'm working on an article right now called "10 Conspiracy Theories That Turned Out to Be True." It's part two of a big one I did, and I I do a lot of research on false flags. In the first one, I have a few different false flags: Operation Gladio, old Italian false flags or whatnot. But it's difficult getting people to really look strongly at 9/11 and looking at the 911 anomalies that are active on that date. And what would you, and assuredly you've faced colleague firefighters and police officers who question what you're saying. What, what are some of the points you go through as a firefighter looking at the situation objectively? What are some of the things you like to invoke besides just the obvious ones of, WTC-7 free falling into its own footprint? What's some of the way you like to look at this psychologically in terms of assessing this as one of the biggest events in the 21st century that has shaped our entire geopolitical landscape since then?
You're full of these very good questions, Jay.
Well,
I'll attempt it.
Basically, it's just a way of saying talk about something cool without me sounding like an idiot.
Well, you can. There's been so much research.
Let me backtrack. It's a difficult issue. There's so much cognitive dissonance around this issue. Even very intelligent people like Noam Chomsky will not go down that rabbit hole. So here's a more specific question. What makes you want to go down that rabbit hole? What makes you impassioned to fight for 9/11 truth?
It's just so obvious to me, and I don't understand how it's not obvious to everybody. And I've talked with Chief Brunacini, who that guy was like my hero. I mean, he wrote, when I went to school to study building construction and fire behavior and anything in the fire service, that guy wrote the books. And all I can say, he's a little bit open-minded on the subject, but I just and really why I've kind of pulled away from convincing anybody else, because if as a firefighter you can see Building 7 come down and you don't know that there's a problem, I just don't know how to reach those people. I really don't. And I've kind of we talked about this last time, but what kind of it makes a full circle with the intelligence services and the blackmail and the pedophilia. Unless we deal with that, I don't think any of these things are going to be solved. Not 9/11, not any of the false flags, not anything that's occurred over the past, you could go back way back. The Kennedy assassination, before that. I mean, the culture of secrecy that basically took over when the CIA was created, it's a living, breathing monster. And I'm not sure what it's going to take to, wake everybody up. But I just have to go back. I mean, I know there's been physicists. If a great site to go to is architects and engineers. There's 2,000 of them. These are guys who, have much more schooling than I ever had, and that are much smarter than me. And there's 2,000 of them that call from the tallest mountaintop. And here in Europe, Richard Gage is the leader of that organization, and it's just plain as the nose on your face that the government's version of events, it cannot be true. If physics applies, and then if you can't convince somebody of that just on that basis, I really don't know what will. Hopefully, and the way I look at it, once these pedophile networks come down, people will start to realize, hey, what I've been told and what my government does and what it's capable of, all these other events will resolve. That's the way I look at it anyway.
And it'd be unrealistic to think that this is a one-of-a-kind thing. I follow a theorist named Richard Dolan, and he is working on a book about how this is the century of the false flag, and says that false flags are used routinely by multiple countries, but namely the U.S., Israel, and Turkey. But you have to be able to have control of the message. You have to have control over the media, and you have to be able to basically militarily threaten other countries. And the United States has that, and not only did they have the means, but they had the motive. I mean, if you look at what's happened since 9/11, they basically installed, the agenda they wanted. They've been able to pass the Patriot Act. They've been able to basically keep people in a perpetual state of fear, to keep the military-industrial complex contractors with full pockets of money. And, so there's, in my opinion, there's been other false flags, but it's hard to prove these. And so in my conspiracy theory lists, I don't normally list these because I want conspiracy theories that are irrevocably proven, are completely proven. Now, one of these I talk about is Operation Gladio, and that was one that took place in Italy from the 1950s to the 1970s. And the United States used stay-behind CIA networks to infiltrate Italy and basically do bombings and blame it on communists in order to usurp the communists there. And that's just, that's what I try and like to tell people, is that this is a common war tactic. It's way more common now, but this has been going back for a while, and it's nations are just now realizing this is the best way to instill terror. I mean, Turkey most certainly has engaged in false flags with the coup there. We saw a false flag in Syria with the weapons attacks. It's a common practice now. That the problem people seem to have is getting past, would the government really do this to their own citizens? Are you kidding me? The United States sent millions of its own people to die in Vietnam. The United States government does not care about a few people dying. They don't care about 100 people dying. They don't care about 1 million people dying. They want power. And it's difficult for me to, as much as it's difficult for other people to understand why they would do that, it's difficult for me to understand why you would think that they wouldn't. So I really respect you taking this on, sir. What are some of the, and L Deeds and DB, if you guys want to chime in, feel free. But I'm interested in
I just want to say, this is a power structure that's been specifically used in slave cultures like Babylonia, and these are the same. These are the same descendants, unfortunately, that at thousands of years they've interbred. They've kept that wealth going. Nobody really knows how much they own, because what they own it's kind of intangible. It's things like art and sculptures and gold bars and property and water rights. Those things. It's tough to say what they own, but let's just say they make people that are the new rich, like Bill Gates, look like he has pennies. So these are people that have had control forever, and one of the control means is a pederasty or a pedocracy, where they can control people through, well, what's the way to do it? Getting them blackmailed by getting stuff on them, doing the most nefarious things you can imagine.
Yeah, the British and the British Empire were expert at it. It's really there are more ancient forms of it, but the City of London, when they got going, I guess in the 14th or 15th century, they were an empire, and that's some of the means that they used to control the empire: terrorism, things like that, blackmail, and it's been passed down over the centuries. And that's the control system that's in place right now. But now we are the empire. And there's a lot of people that argue, and I wouldn't argue too much with them, that the City of London still controls what goes on. So yeah, it's been around for a long, long time, and I don't know. I'm hopeful that I haven't seen as many people, and that's why I keep coming back to the issue of pedophilia. Is that cuts across all political divides, pretty much any divide and conquer tactic that's being used on the population to control them. People are just up in arms about this, and I'm hoping that groundswell of disgust will finally break through this just horrible control system that's really makes the world a terrible place.
Now, what exactly do you think the control system is here? And by the way, I think Howie, do we have you online here?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, fantastic.
Howie, yay.
Welcome to the show.
I downloaded Skype on my phone, so it wasn't working on the computer.
LDs, do you want to take over and do your little intro you were going to do for Howie? Is LD still on?
Oh, God.
Wait, L, you got to see about your...
Maybe she sacrificed herself so you could come on. No.
I would.
Oh, you would?
Oh, great.
What a relief.
Well, we have the full team. We have the full team.
The gang is all here.
Okay, I feel better.
The band is back together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There were so many things I wanted to add or support or endorse. I guess I'd interject now that whistleblowers have been waiting for this moment that we seem to be on the precipice of. And there is a man who I read is named Ronald Bernard. This man is Dutch. He speaks Dutch, and he was a money launderer for the dark money generated by these off-book elite operations. This man has been interviewed as a part 1. I pray there's a part 2. And his part 1 of this interview in Dutch, subtitled, you got to watch his face and the subtitles. I find him totally credible. He talks about his rise from like a scrappy, thuggish upbringing to this upper playing field, where due to his ability to compartmentalize, think logically, see big picture, he was very successful for not that long enough to see the very inner circle, though. His name is Ronald Bernard. He's a Dutch elite banker, money launderer, dark money launderer. He knows how the money is made. The sausage expression you've heard, he knows it's true. He talks in this interview, and you can see his pride in rising to the very top of that playing field. And you can see his, what do you call it? The thing that destroyed him career-wise, his inability to play on their actual level. He says, I believe, I went to psychopath school and I failed.
A man with a conscience. A man with a conscience.
Ronald Bernard. Look him up. Dutch elite banker.
Let's look him up, and then let's bring Howie into the conversation.
Howie, I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. You're absolutely fine.
He's been fighting a battle with Skype for the last 15 minutes. Let's reward him for his battle.
He willingly put on spyware just to join us.
And by the way,
Yeah.
I'll just put this little factoid out there before we continue. Put option purchases on United Airlines and American Airlines rose to 4 times their normal levels in the days preceding the attack. God, I wonder why that could be.
What?
Put options on United Airlines and American Airlines. Basically, rich, wealthy insiders sold their shares of United Airlines and American Airlines by 4 times their normal amounts in the days preceding the attack. Pentagon officials canceled their travel plans on September 11th. Multiple anomalies. But, I could talk about 9/11 forever. I have a feeling we have different agendas overlapping here, and I really want to hear from Howie now. And really, really honored to have you on the show, sir. And
I appreciate you having me.
And so how does your how does your journey figure into the things that we're talking about here? What are some of the issues that are most important to you in the spectrum of what we're talking about?
I mean, I was listening on the podcast, and I guess you could sum it up pretty simply that just basically I've had enough. I'm also, my awakening came from 9/11. I was actually, ironically, I was talking to Elle and John before the call, and I was actually in China on 9/11, and in 2009, when I started getting on YouTube, I basically wanted to look up, what was going on television, because I missed it all. I wanted to see what David Letterman said. I wanted to see what the Daily Show said, what it was like, because I wasn't here. And as I started searching for 9/11 stuff, all this conspiracy came back at me, and I had absolutely no idea. And I just started watching, and that sort of set me on a path. But as it relates to child trafficking and sexual abuse, and I still call it Pizzagate. My thing really started during the election, because I was actually a Bernie supporter, but there was no way I was voting for Hillary. And then I was watching every night. The news was just lying and lying and lying. I was just getting more frustrated. I'm like, what can I do here? And, I had it sort of in my head, like, well, I guess I could stand on the street and hold a sign. And one morning, it was a Saturday morning, I went to troll a Hillary Clinton office here in Philadelphia. Madeleine Albright was showing up, and I had my Hillary for Prison sign. And on the way back from I stood outside while she was in there. And on the way back, I passed this major intersection. It's a 12-lane highway in Philadelphia. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, there's no bigger intersection than this one. And I just stopped, and I just started walking up and down the street holding a Hillary for Prison sign. And I did that for about 3.5 weeks. I went to various rallies, and, and it was effective. And then, everything sort of, after the Podesta 29 emails were released, everything was coming out. I felt like I just said, well, I did it with Hillary for Prison. I can do it with this, because awareness is key, because people just, if it's not on television and it's not in the newspaper, they just don't know. So that's kind of what I do. I mean, I've been to other things. My thing with Pizzagate, I actually went to Comet Ping Pong back in November, and James Alefantis came out and engaged the other person I was with. I didn't know him at the time, and that sort of gave me a little familiarity within the Pizzagate community. And
you may actually be able to answer a question that I've asked of DB, I've asked of LDs. I'm trying to get a I don't know if you're familiar with InfoWars and Alex Jones, regardless of what you think of him or whatnot, but he was a major advocate for the Pizzagate issue, probably the foremost advocate for it. And a few weeks ago, he issued almost a complete retraction of the story and basically apologized to Alefantis. And what is your take on that? Do you think this is a shakedown, or what exactly do you think caused him to do such a reversal on something that had been such an issue for them for so long?
Well, I mean, they weren't, to be perfectly honest with you, they weren't, 100% on Pizzagate. I mean, he has his issues out there every day. And I believe he went on Joe Rogan's show and he talked about it a little bit. But he talks about the elite. He's always been talking about the globalists, the elites, everything. When he went and did that, I mean, there's different theories. He could be getting sued because once again, we don't have the quote unquote evidence that child trafficking is going on with inside of Comet Ping Pong. But it doesn't really matter. All of a sudden, Alex Jones becomes relevant to everybody. For years, everybody dismisses him as a nut case, conspiracy theorist. And then when he comes out against the quote unquote conspiracy theory, then everybody wants to jump on him. So it's not all that relevant, but to me at least, and not to anyone that I know in the Pizzagate community.
So we talk about this a lot. I've talked about it with L Deeds on here and with DB, but we definitely we see there's been a lot of busts recently. There's been a lot of pedophilia rings broken up, but it definitely seems like there's two sets of law in this country, and this applies across the board. There's the law for the common person, and then there's a law for the rich elite. And with this particular issue, it seems as though there's clearly this rink going on. We have these interconnections between Jeffrey Epstein and Trump and Clinton and this Lolita Express plane. But it seems like they're fairly well protected. The Catholic Church is fairly well protected. The rich elite politicians are fairly protected unless they need to be blackmailed to do something. What exactly do you think is the way forward in terms of getting this information out there? I mean, I think something like a WikiLeaks, document dump would help a lot. But what do you think? A lot of people are still in disbelief that members of their government are part of a pedophilia sex ring. What do you think? How do we break through this cognitive dissonance of understanding that pedophilia is a very, very common I will call it illness. It's evil, but it's certainly can be viewed as an illness. But people that commit crimes under it are certainly not, in my opinion, privy to any kind of special, laws or whatnot. What can we do to bring down the upper tier, the elite upper tier of what's going on here?
Well, first of all, may I interject two things?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Not if it's going to kill your role.
No. I'm not even.
First of all, it's not a mental illness. It's a pathology.
Agreed.
Start there.
I mean, that's a whole other argument. I mean,
there's no argument, man. I mean, seriously, if there's an argument, then it's because the brainwashing is working.
If my cousin has depression, that's one thing. Seasonal affective disorder, that's one thing. Restless leg, that's one thing.
All right,
Predation,
fine.
sexuality.
I'll give it to you.
It's on the psychopath spectrum.
It's a pathology then. Fine. I wanted to get.
You guys check your Twitter. We're getting some love on Twitter. Our little band of brothers is expanding. Check your Twitters, please. Anyone listening, trying to hear, thank you.
If I could, I want to read something to you guys, and that I think it's out of the Finder's case, and I'll just read it and let it stand on its own. This was a story that UPI did, and hopefully it'll help people, because I want to, there's a lot of people on Twitter today. What do we do? How do we fight this? What do we do? And that's, I want to give them some solution, and that the way I'm going to try to do this is just give you, unfortunately, you'll have to use your imagination and kind of put yourself, where this story took place, and it was in Tallahassee. And that's when I read it, I go there. I mean, I actually go there and I can see these kids and what happened to them. And before the end of the show, I'm going to give you guys, and I've sent them to Elle and Howie already, and anybody on Twitter that wants these, they just have to give me their email address, and it's a solution there. It's what Jim's doing now, as far as what you can do locally. Obviously, keep an eye. You just have to keep an eye on your children at all times now. That's pretty obvious. But this little thing that I'm going to go through. It shouldn't take me more than about 5 minutes, but it'll show you back in '87 the extent that these networks went to target children and to kidnap them, and just what the kids go through. So is it okay if I go into that?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. This was February 7th, 1987. It was the dateline out of Tallahassee by UPI. Police said 6 filthy and confused young children taken from 2 men charged with child abuse had been given away by their parents as part of a satanic cult ritual. Authorities in Tallahassee and Washington were trying today to learn the identities of the 6 children, locate their parents, and learn more about an unidentified satanic cult apparently based in Washington. Meanwhile, 2 men who identified themselves as Michael Houlihan and Doug Ammerman, names police believe are phony, were being held in lieu of a $100,000 bond on child abuse charges. The men were arrested in a city park Wednesday after someone called police about 2 well-dressed men in a blue van watching over filthy children. It is our belief these kids were not kidnapped, but their parents gave them away because one of the rites of passage into this satanic organization is that you have to give up your rights to your children, and that the leaders of this organization can do what they want with your children, police spokesman Scott Hunt said Friday. I believe what you're going to find when all this shakes down is that the kids' parents belong to this organization. Until we can figure out where everything is, we can't say a whole lot, said Walt Ferguson, the police spokesman in Washington, D.C. The Washington Post reported that today U.S. Customs Service is helping with the investigation, and the pictures found at a Washington, D.C. warehouse linked to the group included those of children engaged in what appeared to be cult rituals. The newspaper said the group was known as the Finders and was made up of about 40 people who lived in the District of Columbia and a farm in rural Virginia, the remains of a popular 1960s hippie refuge that evolved into a Satanist society. Hunt said a 6-year-old girl in the group showed signs of sexual abuse. The children, 4 boys and 2 girls, ranging in age from 2 to 6, were put in state custody. Merrill Moody of the State Health Department said the youngsters were confused but were doing well and will remain in state care until relatives can be found who are able to provide a safe and healthy home. Hunt said the children, who had not bathed in days, were covered with scratches and insect bites, told police they had not eaten in 24 hours, and he said they had bizarre names like Benjamin Franklin, Honeybee, and BB, quote. A check of the Virginia license plate on the van of the 2 men showed it belonged to a man matching Houlihan's description, but with a different name, Hunt said. The men initially told police they were taking the youths to Mexico to begin a school for brilliant children when they could not explain the children's condition or name their parents, Hunt said. The men refused to answer further questions. The children told police they had not seen their mother since before Christmas. One girl said the men fed them mostly fruit, and all of them had been sleeping in a van or in a tent. And Tallahassee police that spent some time with these kids didn't know what a telephone was. They didn't know what a TV was. And they didn't know what a toilet was for. And apparently they told the police that they were kept outdoors and they were only fed as a reward. So let that sink in.
Well,
Yeah, this is sickening information, and it goes right to the heart of all of this. If we can't take care of the children of the earth, who are we? Who are we as a human race?
nothing.
Well,
Joe,
what
can
are
I-
we willing to live with?
Can I piggyback on what Elle said about just the quick distinction between the mental illness and the
Please, that's an interesting issue. I don't want to get it to the point of us.
we don't want,
Yeah.
but there is. Listen, the bottom line is what we believe we've discovered, that there are not enough jail cells. I mean, they'd be building jails for the rest of the time to put people in prison for what they're doing to children. So if this is going to come out, there seems to be a push, and I've talked to people, I'm not an expert on it, that they're trying to make it a mental illness. So that way it's not criminal. It will be treated as any other mental illness.
Well, where's Anthony Weiner and what's he doing?
Well, right. But I'm saying, we first and foremost, we have to make sure that this is and it's treated as a crime.
Criminalized,
Like,
right? Gotcha. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, no, that's an important distinction, and I
right.
think,
That's all.
yeah, absolutely, and I
The
think
push towards yeah, okay.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying because the push towards mental illness would just would put, and then we would probably see a lot of people coming out of the woodwork. Oh yeah, I have it too. I have it too. We'd probably see commercials on TV. There'd probably be a pill for
Well,
it, you know.
I think basically it boils down to where I think there's people that have perhaps a biological predilection to be attracted to people that are prepubescent, and then there are people that act upon that, and at that point it becomes a crime. Now,
No,
Right.
there's no biological imperative to breed with something you can't produce offspring with.
well, I mean, okay, I mean that's
If we're going to bring biology into it, what
well, no, I mean
is the act for?
that's a complex, because
Is it?
because sexuality is
Only two genders. Is it complex?
well, if you obviously don't think it's complex, but so
Well, the only other thing it can be is a domination ritual, in which case these people are just sick, uncivilized, for lack of a better word, just take him out in the back and shoot him in the forehead.
Yeah. Well, what's actually going on and what plays into this is generational. Okay, this abuse. A lot of these people that work for these networks and that are engaged in the hardcore activity, like the networks, and even some of the smaller operators that you're seeing being arrested right now, they were abused, and it's a generational thing. They're raising these children to be given away, to be used in rituals, or to be parts of this network. And it's so insidious that
right.
You can't. We have the law. We know what the law is. If you break the law, you're gonna pay.
And you use the term ritual specifically. Can you go more into that?
Well, these are. Let me quote to you from this. This is a report, and please. Find me on Twitter at FiremanJohn628 if you want. I've got all these documents. I'll email them to you. What I'm covering now is it's a U.S. Treasury report that was filled out by Special Agent Kreitlow, who's a special agent, and Frederick Hayek, who is the resident agent in charge. They investigated this finder's case, and they found that it was credible. They were making attempts to arrest these individuals, and I'll read it to you at the end how this happened. But I just have to go. It's kind of a long incident report that they fill out on, and part of it covers what they found in these warehouses in Washington D.C. Let's see just give me a second here so I can address the. Okay, here we go. The information was specific. This is what they found in these warehouses, describing, quote, blood rituals and sexual orgies involving children, and as yet unsolved murder in which the finders may be involved. So that's what they're doing with these kids. Okay, that's out of a U.S. Treasury agent's report that was done in 1987 on this network. They found fax machines. They found that these people had access to the Tallahassee police reports, before the people in Tallahassee even knew what they were doing. I mean, this was the Walmart of child trafficking that they had in 1987. They had everything they needed to go in and shut this thing down. And let me just tell you, I'll just read the end of it, and then we can, go wherever you want to. But this is why it got shut down, and it is also in the Treasury report. I'll email it to you. I've got the documents. Okay, this is how this investigation ended up. All right. The individual further advised me of circumstances which indicated that the investigation into the activity of the finders had become a CIA internal matter. The Metropolitan D.C. Police report has been classified secret and was not available for review. I was advised that the FBI had withdrawn from the investigation several weeks prior, and that the FBI Foreign Counterintelligence Division had directed Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police not to advise the FBI Washington Field Office of anything that had transpired. No further information will be available. No further action will be taken.
Wow.
So that's in 1987.
Sitting on this for 30 years.
That is incomprehensible.
Well, let me draw a line.
Just one quick thing. I'm going to return to this one last time simply because I want us to be on the same page. I think, LD, I think we're on the same page on this definition of what's going on. I looked it up, and so you view it as a pathology, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the definition of psychopathology is the study of mental disorders. So it's actually within the same spectrum. A pathology is a form of disease, and a mental illness can most certainly be a disease. So I think it's important to differentiate that someone who has this predilection is, they're not, I mean, whatever your views on absolute evil or the devil or whatever, anything like that, you may consider them evil, but they are still afflicted with, they're not the victim because they are the victimizer, but they do have a pathology, which is by definition a mental illness.
I guess I find mental illness being wielded as a shield, and
that may very well be true. That may very well be true. I mean, it's certainly a way to placate what is an insidious affliction.
I'm fucking sorry you're insane, Night Stalker, but you killed my neighbor. You know what I mean?
But that's, exactly. But that's the thing is, with these people doing this doesn't excuse them. If you act upon...
Well, because now we're living in an era of total tolerance and actual celebration of mental illness and aberration.
You break down... Americans, say what you will about them, they care about... This is an issue Americans care about. If we break open the fact that there is a national sex ring that our congressmen are participating in, there will be fucking hell to pay. There will be people on the streets. It will be a big deal. So my question is, how do we break this open? How do we get past these firewalls? How do we get past these blocks put into place to stop us from breaking into the elite groups? One of my favorite films is Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick's last film. And he might have been killed for it. That's a conspiracy theory.
Jake, there is so much to say. As always, you are an absolute fount of great questions and insight and extra information. But we're running out of time, so we got to focus on the last three things you raised, right?
Sure, go for it.
Oh shoot, you called me on that.
Can I jump in with about the ritualistic abuse?
Please,
because
yes.
We have somebody on Twitter who I also consider a very good friend of mine, who she's from the UK and she's been speaking upon this, and she was abused. I mean, it stemmed from her parents who were born into this. And I mean, she's given her testimony about this. And subsequently, I found other people who are now coming forward. Now, the thing is, to get this out there, this is not something anybody is going to talk about. See, there's all kinds of different levels of this. Not everybody is doing ritualistic abuse that was even done in the Franklin case. Some people are just molesters. Some people, they don't even view it as a mental illness. There's groups that are advocating for lowering the age of consent. So, I mean, it's very, very complicated, but
it's complicated and it's shocking, actually.
Right.
It's absolutely shocking.
We have to shock people. And I mean, we have to get people talking. And I'm telling you, we have
to give them things they can grasp, though, Howie. I want to bring this up, and I brought it up before. There are ritual, absurd, unreal, hard to grasp, easy to look away from elements to some of this. There is no doubt there's more than meets the eye. Sure. They have a religion of their own. I have zero doubt. However, it took most of us, months of research and reading and looking at shit you wish you didn't see to grasp that truth. Right. For us to expect the regular listener, someone who's just checking in or doesn't really want to check in on this, we have to keep it earthbound. I feel it in my guts. We got to talk about DynCorp and their history. And
absolutely.
Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney calling them out in the Senate 10 years ago or more. FBI agent Sibel Edmonds, who was calling out Dennis Hastert before Dennis Hastert, Speaker of the House, third in line to the presidency, took his tumble for raping kids. Dennis Hastert, who was the boss of pedophile rep Mark Foley, who represented NCMEC/missing kids in Congress. Let's keep it earthbound. I beg you. I know there's so much more to it, but I feel like we're going to scare away potential allies with some of this crazy Satan shit. Because for God's sakes, I can barely believe it, but I know some of them fucking do.
I think you're totally right there, Elise. I think we keep it based upon local congressmen and senators that we know are doing this.
Right. When I meet people on the street, I never talk about the ritualistic abuse, even though I know it exists. I keep it to basically how I went on my journey, because like even compared to John's been doing this for 10 years. I'm 5 months in. So I learned about it. I look at the Podesta emails. I see pizza being mentioned in ways that just doesn't make sense. So, okay, bang, that's evidence. Now there's a pizza place in Washington, D.C. with extremely creepy pictures on their Instagram. And then they have bands playing there, the heavy breathing, the sex stains, with this crazy, creepy poster art. So that's how I indoctrinate people into this. Take a look at this. Does this make sense to you? No? Okay. And then, everybody's like, well, what is it? What is it? What is it? Tell me everything no, you can't. It's a journey, because, when you start a month in, after you start getting a little bit deeper, it's life changing. Because you realize everything around you. I'm going to be 48 years old. I'm like, I've never seen this. Like, this has been going on. Are you kidding me? Like, I feel like my whole life has been a lie.
I wonder if there's a way that we can get a WikiLeaks type group that's specifically devoted to this, because what we need is hard evidence. And once you get
Jake, I've got it for you. I just want to get these documents out. I'm going to email them to you guys, and some of them have already went out. But I just want to cover just really briefly some of the solution, and it's in these documents. And one of the parts of it is a local ordinance that anybody can take to their county commission, their city commission, their town. And it's an anti-trafficking ordinance that can be passed as law. And the other important part of this document is guidelines for victims' family response. These were written by Jim Rothstein, 50 years of this, and Noreen Gosh, whose son was kidnapped by the Franklin Network. So it's in these documents. It's pretty easy to follow, and the more we can get those out, if it's in a wiki group, wherever it is, we can get into the solution. And that may be the way this comes down. We might have to do it from the bottom up. But the one report, it's a confidential report that Jim prepared for Congress, that went to Congress, probably 20 years ago, but it's just as valid today. And the most important part of that is the guidelines for victims of this abomination. So I just wanted to get that in. It's all in these documents. You can get a hold of me on Twitter, Fireman Johnson.
And Jim Rothstein's resume exists online. He is a hero, and a hero with stamina.
And we're up against the clock here, but it's been a real honor to have JT, to have you on again, Howie, to have you on, LD. It's always an incredible honor to have you on. You guys are doing incredible research on an issue that's very stigmatized, and I really, really respect the work you're doing. I know DB does too. And if there's any last thoughts here, you guys are free to take us into the close here.
We need hours and hours and hours to talk about this.
National Missing Children's Day is May 25th. It's every year. This year it's a Thursday. Reagan invented this holiday for NCMEC Missing Kids, this DOJ program, which is FOIA proof, which your state right now is line item funding, Amber Alert, which employs Laura Silsby Gaylor, convicted child trafficker, caught twice at Haiti's border, rescued by the Clintons. Now she's a DOJ employee. How the fuck does a convicted child trafficker pass background check to work for the DOJ, never mind in a vulnerable child program? Look.
And there will be a Twitter storm on the 20th in support of National Missing Children's Day. And we'll get you all the information on that. And
their hashtag is Rock One Sock.
God, don't get me started.
Don't you just feel it? You feel it and you understand it's about saving children, right?
This is a global epidemic, and we owe it to the future inheritors of the earth. We're screwing them over in many, many ways in terms of the environment and all kinds of issues. But sexual abuse at a young age permanently rewires and screws up people's brains. It's a hideous illness, not illness, it's a hideous affliction on the human race that we're dealing with right now.
And DOJ program Missing Kids Nick Mix wants you to rock one sock on May 25th to remember the missing children.
Wow.
Well, we're gonna in that Twitter storm, we're gonna have a real hashtag.
Also use hashtag rock one sock, y'all.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
That's so blatantly disgusting.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Hey,
unbelievable.
Can you guys message me your Twitter handles here? I want to make sure I'm following you guys because you're doing some incredible research here, and you're kind of in a league of your own. This is an issue that people want to overlook. It's why Pizzagate was quickly buried. It's why even, people like Ben Swan with actual power were taken off the air soon after he did his expose on it.
Jake, did your guest Derek Bros interview Ben Swan?
Yes, he did.
When? Where's that show archive?
I'm not sure. Even Dr. Phil has come out. But I don't think Derek Bros talked with him about that.
But he at least talked to him. I mean, where the hell has he been?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. We should look that up. But, even Dr. Phil has come out against it. Did you guys see his show about child sex trafficking?
Absolutely. That's big.
Kendall?
That's big.
Kendall needs our support, and he needs the owner investigated.
It's hitting the zeitgeist.
We need an update from Dr. Phil.
Indeed we do. Where's Kendall?
Awareness is being raised, and you guys are part of the forefront of this, the vanguard. And, I think a lot of future children will have a lot of thanks to you guys. And, it's such an insidious issue.
It's at the heart of the world. Yeah. It determines everything.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah, really.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you
Surely
so
welcome.
And peace, everyone. Love one another, and don't.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. My name